Good morning. Hey guys, it is Wednesday, February 13th, or Valentine's Day Eve for you lovebirds out there. And welcome to the ride. Got a few things I gotta do to get everything up and running, but just bear with me. Usually when we get started, there's not a lot of people on here yet, so it gives me a few minutes just to get everything rolling along. If you happen to jump on here, just hit your messenger, say hello so I know you're here, and we'll get on with the day. Usually in the beginning, I actually just let everybody know what they're watching and what's going on. So my name is Dave Bernard. I am a 47-year-old fat man from Michigan. On January 4th of this year, I was supposed to have an umbilical hernia operation. And in not so many words, my surgeon basically said I was too fat, kind of. Anyways, said it'd be better if I lost weight. Got my BMI down to at least a 35. He said that would be the equivalent of a 25 for somebody with a more average build. And so I've chosen to cycle to lose weight. And I am using my Raleigh Willard 2 gravel bike attached to a, oh, well, look at that, I have a new achievement. Along with a Wahoo Kickr 18 interactive trainer, and of course all kinds of other fun things that allow me to stream this wonderful journey I'm on with you. So the idea is right now is that I'd be riding, at least from a streaming standpoint, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings at 7 a.m. Eastern time. So if you want to join in, cheer me on. I obviously appreciate it. And part of the reason I'm doing this, as far as the streaming goes, is to create that accountability that I need. So, though it may not seem like much, what's up, East Coast? So, it gives me that accountability to actually get up and go, knowing that you guys are going to be here. And we've got quite a few people that jump on every morning that I'm on, and it definitely helps. It's that accountability that I think we all need, and I can't get away from it. What's up, New Hampshire? I'm not so much that far east, but I'm East Coast time. So, anyways, January this year, I found out that it wasn't a good idea to have the surgery before I lost the weight. So, I'm on my bike, riding on just to get it done. So I need to get down to 244 pounds. I started off at 313 pounds. I've been pretty much powerlifting for the last 5 years, and that just is just a ginormous, yeah, you can't get any further east than that. Then that's awesome. What a beautiful area you live in too. We love it here in Michigan, but there's nothing like the northern East Coast, especially if you're near the ocean. But one thing you'll see is that I'm not a professional rider. I'm pretty slow on. We'll get you a little better view than just the trees here. I am also new to Zwift, and so I'm learning how everything else works. I'm new to streaming. So I'm using a program called OBS to actually create the stream. I have a Vixie R400, an old camcorder that's hooked up to my computer, which is a newer HP gaming computer. And I have all of this, and if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see a description of and links to everything that I'm using. I'm using the Elgato Cam Link in order to have the webcam going. Trying to think of some of the other things that you may be interested in. The effect of having me on top of the game here without any background is very simple. You can look it up anywhere on YouTube. I have a green screen behind me, and I'm using the chroma key green so that everything else is blocked out and it looks like I'm inside the game, I guess you'd say. But this has been fun. I mean, it's only been a few weeks. This few weeks, all I've been really trying to do is get myself used to riding, getting my ass used to the seat again, and haven't been doing any specific type of training or anything really for weight loss. So yeah, this streaming thing's been a trip. If you're new to it also, for me, there's been challenges in the hardware, what works, what doesn't work, all of the different options that you have to pull off a stream. For instance, I was using a laptop for a while and it just didn't have the power to do this, so but it could have. And one of the ways that you can take away from your laptop getting crushed on the graphics side is to connect to your iPhone or iPad, and that works pretty well, but I chose to just go to a different computer, one that actually had a graphics card in it. You know, because that was the part that was actually killing my laptop, was the fact that I didn't have a graphics card. But figuring out how to get the sound right. So I'm using something I already had was a blue snowball microphone on a boom. So that's actually just sitting right here in front of me. And then I'm only using one noise filter on that. And you can look up a lot of different things. You don't have to look at people that do Zwift for streaming. Any of the gamer channels usually will show you how to do all this. Let's get there we go. And so for me, it's just been getting used to doing this. But as I've said before, I would suggest for anybody that's interested in using Zwift and streaming to do it. Because what I find is that it is so much of a distraction trying to, oh boy. We're definitely climbing. We're at 10% grade. And I picked this course because it only had 200 feet of incline, but so I thought it'd be a little flatter. I was wrong. 10% is a little bit much this early on, but I just have to change some gears and get it from there. So one of the things in the upper left-hand corner, you can actually see the amount of work I'm putting in as far as the watts go. My RPMs, which is a cadence sensor that I have attached to my pedals from Wahoo. And then of course my beats per minute, that's my heart rate. And I'm just trying to make sure I don't go too crazy. Oh yeah, that'd be cool. I'm assuming that's when you say G on my keyboard, that's it. No kidding, that's it. Thank you very, very much, because I've been trying to figure that out. I've seen other streamers have that going across the bottom and just haven't taken the time to figure out what the heck that was. I assume they were just on a training course, or they were following a training plan. That's why that was coming up, but that's awesome. I appreciate it. And I've got this cheat sheet. So I actually have a cheat sheet for Zwift for my keyboard, and G's not on there. But anyways, so I do suggest if you're interested in doing this, that you also consider streaming, not just doing Zwift, because it's a nice distraction. Years ago, I was training only for a few months because everything fell through, but I was training to to ride across country to help a film crew on this breast cancer awareness ride that they were doing. And it, like I said, everything fell through, but I was training on a kinetic trainer, and you know, just watching TV and listening to music, and I'm gonna tell you, man, that was tough. Where I find using the Zwift app along with streaming has made everything much more bearable as far as getting through it. In most cases, I'm 30 to 40 minutes in before I even realize that I've been riding that long. But again, my plan here is to ride every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time here in the United States, and to share that with you, and just to keep it interesting, to have a topic that we discuss at least for a short period of time, at least the second half of the ride. So 30 minutes in or so is when I plan to start talking about today's topic, and I welcome anybody's idea as far as things they'd like to talk about. But today, 30 minutes in, we're going to talk about why we're fat. And the premise behind it is it an environment or is it genetics? And I'm not going to get into a whole lot of specifics, just my ideas, things that have come across my mind over the last few years. As you can see on the screen, I've been through this journey before. Back in 2012, I lost 67 pounds, put on some muscle, and that was an 8-month period of time in that transformation. Yeah, man, I'm hoping to hit 2 hours soon. You know, I'm hoping to hit at least 20 miles here. I don't know what that is in kilometers, but you know, that's what I'm used to riding once I'm in shape. The couple of routes I ride are about 20 miles. And so I think the most I've ridden so far on Zwift is 13 miles in an hour. And so, or it's close to that. But I'm just, like I said before, I'm just trying to get my body used to it, get my ass used to it, and just do whatever I gotta do. So, I know I can do it. I've done it before, and we're gonna talk about some of those things throughout my rides. So if you're interested, I'd love to hear your opinion and your ideas. Now, to give you a little bit more background on me, I actually have a Bachelor's of Science degree in exercise sciences, where I concentrated primarily on kinesiology and physiology, but of course diet was a part of that also. And I was doing that for a very selfish reason, which was to learn what it was going to take to make myself better naturally, so that I was hoping to have a professional American football career, which didn't happen, but that was the purpose behind the degree. And of course, I didn't do it as a profession. I didn't follow through with med school. I ended up working for General Motors after my 4th year. But whew, well, at least I'm finally getting warmed up. And the other thing, so I've had a couple of wins this week from a nerd standpoint. So I bought this computer a few weeks ago, and I ended up buying a 32-inch LG screen to go with it, which is, I'm in love with the thing. It's got a split screen program that comes along with it that you can download. But I wanted my 27-inch hooked up also, and that's actually where I have Zwift running right now. But when I first hooked it up, it was all glitchy. As soon as you'd hook it up, I mean, everything would freeze just for a millisecond or so, but enough where you could see it. And, well, maybe more than a millisecond, but you know what I mean. So it just wasn't working, and so I couldn't stream and have two screens on at once. So I looked on forums, I looked at some of the suggestions, which I didn't do, which was to delete the drivers for the graphics card and then reinstall them. I wasn't comfortable with doing that, specifically because the computer's brand new and I didn't want to get into any kind of warranty issue. And so I just kind of kept fighting through it by buying different types of adapters. So the problem with this graphics card is it only has one HDMI out, and then it has 4 display outs. Well, what I ended up doing is buying a display to HDMI adapter and connecting that to my LG screen. And then my Acer screen, which is just on a VGA connection, I have that going to a HDMI to VGA adapter, and it worked. Don't know why it worked, don't care. It worked. Everything is, it thinks that I'm running 2 HDMI connections somehow, and the BIOS or the driver or whatever it is, it's working, and I dig it. You know, you're the second one to tell me that if I ride on metric, and you know, us Americans, we're pretty stubborn, but I think I'm gonna have to go ahead and just start getting on the old metric bandwagon if I fully want to take advantage of what Zwift has to offer. Now, it's not that I shouldn't already be comfortable with it, because I've lived in many countries around the world in my 47 years, and all of them use the metric. So, let's see, I've lived in, when I was very young, 20s, not before that. So as an adult, I was fortunate to live in Mexico City for a while I was working for General Motors, and then later on I lived in Venezuela for a short period of time, Colombia for a short period of time, then in Thailand for quite a while, a couple months in Australia. So I've been fortunate to be cultured globally. South Korea, who don't like us a whole lot, even though you wouldn't think that'd be the case, but when you really get to know them, they'll tell you. And I find that a lot of places around the world that I've been aren't real impressed with us Americans. We tend to not want to learn the culture, even though I felt like I tried. But we tend to not want to adapt to the culture. We almost feel like, it's almost like we feel like we should be catered to, which is sad. And like I said, I tried my best to read as many books as I could before I went into a country, while still staying close to our State Department and the things that were going on throughout the U.S. And for us that were expats traveling abroad. But anyways, I digress. I think that on the metric side, it'll be fairly easy to eventually grasp everything, just because I kind of know where I've always been as far as weight and what I can do on a bike, and so I might as well just switch over. So we'll see. Maybe by Friday I'll switch everything over to metric, and we'll just start down that path sooner than later. It's not going to really hurt anything, because I'm not trying to break any records by any means. All I'm trying to do is, like I said, get my body used to this and just keep riding. Eventually I'll start getting into some training that's specifically designed for me to lose fat. And so if I don't find what I like on Zwift, as far as interval type training, I'll just set up my own, and I'll have an interval trainer going on. So since y'all are on here, how's the sound going? Is everything sounding good? Can you hear a little bit of the music in the background? Trying to make sure that the music isn't overpowering. Well, that's good to know that I can create my own workouts, because good. Thank you for responding to the sound. I wasn't sure. Normally I try to wear earphones. I did a review on these earbuds on our last ride, but the problem with them is that they're almost too good, and it's just weird when you're talking and you can't actually hear anything. And so, though I wouldn't mind listening to a little music while I ride, it's more comfortable to keep those out while I talk to you guys. The other thing I've been learning is the different kits, so the different outfits, and I've had one of my buddies here has sent me links to some of the codes to change up the kits. Today I think I'm wearing one that's pretty common, nothing special, but there are some cool ones out there. I mentioned that I was looking to add maybe my own oath kit together, put that together, and I found out that that's not an easy thing to accomplish. It's a lot of licensing and more than I'm interested in doing right now. That's funny, bud. So, yeah, today's ride's going a lot better than before. Now, I'm riding the New York, one of the loops in New York City. The flattest route I could find, because I'm not ready for anything else quite yet. Oh, man. I did get a new pair of shorts just to try out. I can't remember the brand. There's some bib shorts. They're doing pretty good this morning. I really do like my Specialized shorts that I wear, and I still haven't made a decision on changing up my seat or my saddle, and I will do that, but I don't want to do it until I go to a professional bike shop and get fitted. Even though there's a couple of seats on Amazon that I wouldn't mind trying, and I could always send them back if I don't like them, but again, this thing, it makes more sense, if nothing else, to get sized up for the saddle before I make the purchase, and I'll share that with you guys when I get the new one. Yeah, size small might fit my lower leg. That's about it. And so one of these days I'm gonna one of these days I'll put my different measurements on here so you guys can see beyond my weight. Again, I'm over 300 pounds. I don't know, I think my neck right now, it has shrunk, believe it or not, even though there's not much there. My neck is around 19 inches. It used to be well over 20 when I was lifting. And it's been that way most of my life. My calves are usually about that same size. So they're somewhere around 20 inches usually. My arms used to be around 20 inches. I'm going to guess them to be closer to 17 or 18 inches now. My legs, my thighs, used to be around 32 inches each. They're probably closer to 27, is a guess, maybe 25, I'm just guessing. I haven't measured them in forever. So, needless to say, I'm a big boy. But I suspect, now back in 2012 in that before and after picture, I got myself down to, I think the lightest I got was 229 pounds, and I stayed around 230, 231 for quite a while before I decided this super smart decision to bulk up and put on muscle, which just turned into me getting fat over the last 5 years. Needless to say, you can probably tell with the sarcasm that I'm not happy about that. But so I suspect if I can stay out of the weight room as far as lifting heavy, and of course I can't do any of that while I have this umbilical issue, but if I can stay out of the weight room, I think that by next January, even though that my goal is 244 pounds, and that's where Mission 44 comes from, by the way. By the way, Mission 44 sounds better than Mission 244 for whatever reason to me. Not that it matters to anybody else in the world, because it's just me. But I really think in reality that I can probably get down to at least 220 pounds, you know, and maybe further. We'll see how this all goes over time. But right now the goal is 244 or a BMI of 35. That's the goal. So, and the goal is to get there before January of 2020. Now, of course, if I have an emergency and something goes wrong and I tear my hernia more, when we have surgery before then, and we take all the risk with that for recovery. Basically, the recovery, this is what kind of sucked for me, was that, you know, I knew what the recovery was supposed to be, which is around 6 weeks for that kind of surgery, and usually within a week or so you're back on your feet. But he said because of my weight and primarily the fat in my stomach, that I was looking at least 12 weeks, and that there was no guarantee that I wasn't going to re-injure myself, and he was going to have me on a restriction of 5 pounds, of lifting no more than 5 pounds that entire 12 weeks. Well, makes more sense just to go and nope, umbilical hernia. My inguinal hernia was over 25 years ago when I was playing American football, and I thought I could hide it from the doctors, and they didn't take them long at the university to find it. So I had that surgery back when I think I was 21 years old. So I know a little bit, but they say that your umbilical hernia surgeries are much easier to recover from. And of course back then I had the biomesh put in, and this time around it's not likely. However, if I would have had the surgery in January, chances are, because of, just to be safe, they would have actually used biomesh again. And biomesh has got some complications. It takes longer to recover from. It's, I can tell you for me, I think it was over 5 years, that area that I had the surgery, I was still very, very numb for a long time, and that sucked, you know. Well, if anybody's running the course right now, you will be flying by me, because I am going a blazing 2 miles per hour on this 10% incline. But I'm doing it, and I haven't gotten off the bike yet, which is wasn't the case. Oh, and shit, I passed somebody. Well, that guy doesn't count. But woo, man. So I am going to get into this topic of why we're fat. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm kind of pushing that oh shit range on my BPM, but I feel good, so that's good. It's funny because as I've gotten used to Zwift, I'm starting to realize where everything's at. on the screen. Now, one mistake I made this morning is my chair is blocking the bottom half of the screen, so I gotta kind of look over it to see everything. But the numbers that matter, I can see quite fine, so that's good. Oh man. So I'm already made it past the first loop. So that was my second time up that hill. And so we'll just see how many times we do that. Woo! Probably shouldn't be taking a break when I'm going downhill, but I need to. So we're gonna get into just my ideas really on why we're fat. And this is probably more specific to Americans, specifically the United States. And you know, I've had some epiphanies over the years, and of course, yes, I've been studying this. I've been into all this since I was 12. I've had between 16 and 20 years of not following any of of the advice I give other people. You know, by the way, I'm like most of, well, I shouldn't say most, a very large amount of today's people here in America where we sit for our jobs. So technology has been great, but it's unfortunately caused a lot of us to get into these daily jobs where we sit. And that's not how we're made. So getting into why we are fat, you know, is it the environment? Is it genetics? Or is it both? So I've thought through a little bit. I've got a few notes here. You know, from a genetic standpoint, you know, there was a movie on Netflix that I watched. I don't know when I watched it, but the name of the show was Why Are We Getting So Fat? And it wasn't an American thing. It was more of a UK, European documentary, I believe. Even though I think they did have some Americans in it. But one of the points that the doctor had made in that, or the guy doing the documentary had made, was, you know, some of us are dealt a bad hand genetically, and some of us are dealt a good hand genetically. And what that means is that the people that are dealt a good hand genetically have fast metabolisms, have just a more aesthetically pleasing, skinnier body. Doesn't mean that they're healthy, but you know, they just have better genetics as far as either putting on muscle or maintaining a lower fat percentage, you know, or both. And then there's another group that has been dealt a bad hand, and they're typically, you know, they're fatter. You know, they can't eat whatever they want. Everything they eat seems to turn into some, you know, another pound of fat. But what the doctor had said was it isn't so much the cards that you're dealt, it's not so much the cards that you're dealt, it's the way that you play those cards. So somebody with great genetics but does nothing about it can be completely unhealthy, and we all know this. And of course, somebody with terrible genetics can be in great condition and be way healthier than somebody with the better genetics or the better cards dealt. And so it's really all about how you play the cards, is what this doctor was saying. And you know, I'm somebody that was, as a young person, was dealt a good set of cards. I was athletic. I was very skinny as far as body fat goes. Now, there were some environmental parts of that we'll get into, but you know, for me, I also didn't have video games. My parents didn't buy any of the fun stuff that the rest of my friends had. We had to go outside. And so that would be more of the environmental side of it. So for me, I was genetically gifted then, but when I was about 15 years old, I was told I'd never be big enough to play college football, and I just didn't want to take to that. idea, and so I learned how to overeat in order to put that weight on. And of course, when football was done in my early to mid 20s, I was no longer active. I was concentrating on my career, but I was still eating poorly. And of course, that'd fall into your environmental side of things. So genetically, I have the potential, or had the potential, but I've messed up my metabolism a little bit. It's not that I can't get it back by being more active and doing what I'm doing now, but everybody's handed a different set of cards. Now, you know, I used to say 5 or 6 years ago when I lost all that weight that, you know, guys, it didn't really matter what I did. I was never gonna have the body of somebody like Brad Pitt because I'm just not built that way. So I was always realistic on the aesthetics of what I may look like. And I got to the point where I didn't even weigh myself anymore. I started just using a belt. And as long as I kept the notches right, then I was doing okay. Of course, stopped putting that belt on and got fatter, but that's a whole different thing. So that falls into, you know, so genetics are what they are. You're dealt the cards you're dealt, it's just a matter of how you play them. But then let's talk about the environment and how that affects you. And it's a really big subject. I think the environment is a lot of how we are as a society as far as the type of work that we do now compared to even 100 years ago. Probably 200 years ago is a better example. And the food that we eat and consume is another big piece of that. And so when we talk about food, the epiphany, well, I definitely bought a bigger belt, but I should not have done that. I should have just buckled down, pun intended, and got back on track, but I didn't. And I didn't because, you know, I think we're very simple creatures. And I know I'm a very simple creature. And so when we're rewarded for our activity, we tend to just continue to do it. And so my reward wasn't anything that mattered to anybody else. It was my own personal ego. And so when I would be in the gym, it didn't matter how fat I was, it mattered how strong I was. And so every week as I'm lifting more and more weight and I'm improving on my strength in all of my power lifts, that was my reward. And so I was just a little Pavlov dog, you know, and I wasn't measuring the right measurements as far as my health went. You know, I was letting my ego stay in the way, and it's one of the reasons I'm actually, as I've spoken before, it's one of the reasons that I'm choosing to do this indoor cycling at my home and stay out of the gym, because I know myself. I am absolutely going to lift weights if I'm in a regular gym. And I don't care, no matter what. If I'm in a gym and there's weights, I'm going to start putting more and more weight on, and I'm going to be showing those young kids how strong big old Dave is. And it's just not, I just can't control it. Where here, all I have is my Raleigh Willard 2 gravel bike, my Kickr 18, and you guys. And so that's why I'm following this. But you know, when it comes to food, so I've had this, and I don't want to say it's a well thought out idea, but you know, when it comes to health in 2019, and really for the last probably 40 or 50 years, one of the things that, so there's two pieces of the puzzle, right? So there's two pieces of the puzzle. It's what you eat and it's the activity or exercise. Well, I would say the most challenging part is to make sure you exercise, because you're going to eat no matter what. It's just a matter of what you eat, how much you eat, and when you eat. 200 years ago, so this is a new concept for us in evolution. 200 years ago, we didn't think about it. We ate the same as we eat now, which is not even thinking. We just went out and ate. Now everything is processed and convenient, and I think there's a lot of issues that science has proven, one of which is that the processed food kills off a lot of the good bacteria that our guts need. And there are some studies that, I'm not going to get into a lot of details here because it's a little gross, but there's some studies out there that show that you could actually replace a good, healthy, low BMI human's fecal matter into your own gut, and it'll actually help you start to lose weight by putting those good bacteria back in your gut. And I know a lot of people believe in probiotics, and a lot of fat people will take them with no results, and it's just because those different probiotics just might not be what's good for you, or you've been dealt some bad cards, or you think that's all you have to do, or there's a lot of things out there. So I don't disagree with you. I think a lot of people do the wrong food, but the idea here is that it's a new evolution, that we even have to think about what we eat, that we even have to prep our meals. You know, it's not natural. It's just natural to eat. So you're never gonna. Here's the one thing, and kind of the idea or premise behind what I'm saying is that when it comes to trying to get healthy, there isn't a lot of thought that you have to put into eating as far as are you or are you not. You're not going to starve yourself for very long. You're going to eat eventually. So somebody that's even on a starvation type diet, you're going to eat. Now, are you going to eat the right stuff? Are you going to eat the right types of food? Are you going to eat the right portion sizes? Are you going to eat all the right macros and or micronutrients for your body? My thing is no. I think that's the biggest challenge that people have from a food standpoint. So it's not that you're not going to eat. I know this sounds a little dumb, but it's a fact that you're going to eat. Are you going to eat the right stuff? I don't know. Are you going to eat the wrong stuff? Pretty easily you're going to eat the wrong stuff. If it's processed, it's not good for you. Now, the other side of that environmental thing is how we work and what we do throughout the day as a whole. And you know, we used to have to go out years and years and years ago, and hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, as a people, we would harvest our food, we would hunt our food, we would farm our food, we would go out and get our food. And even 100 years ago, our food still came from those sources, even though we may not have been the ones, you know, farming or hunting. We would still end up in the market and have very fresh food. It wasn't processed. It didn't have long shelf lives. So all of those things. So the food we were eating was still better for us 100 years ago than it is today, and I think everybody would agree with that. And so, but from an activity standpoint, we're not out doing any of that. We're sitting more and more and more. Now, I worked inside the automotive industry for nearly 20 years of my life, and I was responsible for some of this because I did what was called re-engineering. And the goal of that re-engineering process was to make sure that our workers weren't getting injured. So we would create assist devices so that they could manufacture or assemble parts and without injury over time. So ergonomically, it wasn't hurting them. They weren't lifting too much. So we've continuously made our lives easier and easier with technology. Or we've been like myself, where we sat at a desk for 8 to 10 hours a day, you know, 5, 6, 7 days a week. And in my case, for quite a few years, that was actually up to 16 hours a day when I was working on some of the bigger $100 million job projects that I was fortunate enough to be a part of. So our environment today compared to the past, in a very short period of time in evolution, we are now sitting more than ever, is the point. And so it's harder and harder to get the exercise in that our bodies need, and so we have to force it. Unfortunately, we have to force it. It isn't going to just come to you. We have to force the exercise. And that's the part that is easy to forget. For me, it's easy to sleep in until it's time to go to work. It's not easy to get up and do this, which, by the way, as I've told everybody before, I do plan on going to a 5-day-a-week schedule once my body is ready for it, or up and, you know, getting past the ass hurt and everything else. But woo-wee. And getting to where I don't have to do that, where I don't have to take the breaks. And of course, if I was smart, I wouldn't be taking breaks when I had a negative 4% grade. I'd just be riding down the hill. But, so that's it. That's the premise of why are we fat. I mean, it's both the environment, your genetics play a part in it, but you have a big piece of the puzzle, which is just getting off your ass and doing anything. I don't care what kind of exercise it is. Do what's right for you. If you love running, run. If you love riding a bike, ride a bike. Don't let either of those be an excuse. If you got to get on a treadmill, get on a treadmill. If you got to buy a trainer, get on a trainer and a bike. Whatever it takes. Join your local gym. They have both. Hey, if you're doing both, that's perfect, because if you follow along with the premise, the worst thing you can do is sit here and watch me. And matter of fact, I specifically remember back in 2012 making a Facebook post while I was watching The Biggest Loser. And that post was very specifically was, hey, I just figured out how to get on The Biggest Loser. It's sit here and watch The Biggest Loser. I mean, I was watching that show of people losing weight, right, wrong, or indifferent to how they were doing it, losing weight, and I would be sitting on the couch, eating popcorn, eating ice cream, devouring all kinds of stupid calories, while I wished I was one of those people. It was about the dumbest moment of my life. I was like, what the hell are you doing, man? Like, get off your ass and start doing something. And of course, at that point, I already knew that I had to lose weight. I already knew I was pre-diabetic. I already knew all the things. So no, don't just sit here and watch it. If you're watching TV while you're exercising, that's awesome. That's the way you should do it. Take that time and do it. Who cares what your house looks like? Put that treadmill right in the middle of your living room. You know? You don't have that many friends that come over anyways, more than likely. And if you do, you should be proud of the fact that you're out, that you're actually exercising. I mean, I'm not just saying it. This bike is directly in the middle of my living room. I set my computer up in my living room. Now, I could set it up down in its own room downstairs, out of sight, but I like looking outdoors. I happen to live in the middle of 2,000 acres of state land. I have 12 acres of my own. I'm blessed to have that right now. And so I like looking out the windows. That's why I'm not in my basement. And if that's going to bother somebody when they come over because they got to see all this set up in my living room, that's on them, man, right? So the idea is do whatever it takes. You don't have to use Zwift. You don't have to run. You don't have to ride a bike. Anything. Go to boot camp. Join a gym. Get a trainer. Do CrossFit. Which, by the way, is kind of my lead-in for next week's topic. Sorry guys, I gotta get off for just 1 second because I've got some pretty major sweat going on in my eyes, which is a good thing, but it hurts. So do whatever it takes. Get yourself moving. That is one of the hardest things. And always concentrate, in my opinion, on the diet. Try to eat less. Try to eat the right foods. Don't let anybody discourage you. Don't let anybody discourage you on anything that you're choosing to do. So if you're new to getting back on the horse as far as exercise goes, you know, you're going to have friends that are going to tell you that whatever you're doing is wrong. And don't listen to them. If you made your mind up to try and start something, just do it. You know, you're going to have a lot of people tell you that CrossFit is no good. But if you've got friends and you're comfortable with going, you know, then go do CrossFit. Try it. I will tell you that one thing in CrossFit is that they can modify everything for you. That's really the entire idea. So don't ever let anybody discourage you from doing that. But join a boot camp, get a personal trainer, join a gym, buy a bike, get a treadmill, buy some running, whatever it is. If you think you're too fat to do anything, and by the way, I've been pretty fat in my life, you know, just walk. You know, walk until you can walk a mile. Walk until you can walk 2 miles. And then when you get ready to start losing fat, start doing intervals with just walking. It's gonna work. If you don't want anybody to see you, go on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or any other buying site and buy a used treadmill or bike, whatever. Just get it, just start moving and continuously work on how you eat. And the reason I don't put as much emphasis on the diet side is because you're gonna eat. You just gotta keep learning and keep fighting to eating better. Now, kind of the last point I want to make as far as all of this goes, and we'll talk about it again some other time, is thanks, man. Now I just lost track of what I was going to say, but that's funny. Oh, it talks, what I'm thinking here is, you know, there's people who'll tell you whether or not you should use a scale, and I say just use your own judgment. When I'm really on point and I know I'm trying to eat really well or I'm trying a different something, I will weigh myself at least once a day. However, if I realize that I haven't been doing very well and there's no secret in what I've done that day, I won't even bother weighing myself. I don't need to know that I messed up. And one of the secrets that I had back in 2012, there's a few of them. One, I did weigh myself every day, actually twice a day, and because I was learning what worked, what was working for me, and so I wanted to just, I knew I could remember what I ate today. I probably wasn't going to journal and go back and see what mistakes I might have made over a week period of time or whatever. So that was one of the things. I made my goal public, and I think that holds yourself accountable. And so my way of staying public this time around is I'm on Twitch, YouTube, and I'm on Facebook Live now using a program called Restream. So it's restream.io, and it attaches to OBS, which is what I'm using to put together the stream. And so you're able to stream your games, you know, Zwift, anything else that you want to. You can learn more about that from other people. So making yourself accountable, making it public helps, because your friends are going to make sure you're there, and they're going to call you out when you're not. And even if they don't say a word, they're watching. You know, I had several people that first time around, it took them over a year, and they finally just gave in and said, okay, tell me what you're doing. You know, how can I do this too? One thing I would suggest is that you don't do 10% grades when you're 300 pounds. Oh my God. Anyways, so that was one of the tricks, was going public, weighing myself consistently, following a very strict plan as far as diet went. It's also no secret that I was basically unemployed during that time, so I don't want to say that you can do what I did in 8 months. I would suspect it would take longer, and it would be a little bit more of a fight, like it is for me right now. It's more of a fight now than it was back then. So go public, fight the diet, make sure you're exercising. You don't know what you're doing, ask for help. Oh yeah, man, that sucks. Well, you know, I'll be honest with you. So the 20-mile mark, the fastest I've ever done my 20-mile mark is 1 hour and 12 minutes. So 72 minutes is the fastest I've ever went 20 miles. And that was on a trail close to me, which is an old railroad trail, and it rides from the town of Columbiaville to Millington and back. And the fastest I've ever done that trail is 72 minutes. So 1 hour and 20 minutes is, if I was to go out and try to do it right now, I'd probably hit about 1 hour, 20 minutes, hour and 30 minutes, somewhere in there. Now, that 1 hour and 12 minutes was on a road bike. And so I would suspect, even in the same condition today, I wouldn't ride it even near as fast, only because I've got a wider tire on this gravel bike. But it's all relative. For me, it's more about the type of training I'm going to be doing eventually and getting myself into that interval mode where I can optimize my fat loss. But that's going to be a while. And my plan right now for that is, I always think that whatever you do last in your exercise regimen is what your body's going to adapt to. So if you're trying to put on muscle, you know, as far as just a regular gym, which is where my experience is, you're gonna put on muscle and you know you gotta do your cardio, that you should start your workouts off with warming up, getting your cardio out of the way, and then finishing with your strength training. And the opposite, if you're trying to lose fat, that you should do your warm up, do your strength training, and then finish with, you know, some kind of a interval training, and then obviously a cool down. So whatever you do last is kind of the way your body is going to react. So my thought is that when I do set up my training, I'll be doing 30 minutes of just regular riding, a warm up, 20 minutes of interval, so high intensity, where I'll do 90 seconds of nice and easy riding, and then 30 seconds of as fast as I can, hard as I can go, or the most resistance, or whatever that interval happens to be. And then a 10-minute cool down. That's what my research tells me works best for me. So eventually I'll go into that type of a workout at least 3 days a week. Now, I want to get to where I'm riding 5 to 6 days a week, and 6 days only happening every so often. But I want to get to where I'm riding 5 to 6 days a week, and that Tuesday and Thursday rides will be longer distance, so maybe not as hard of an intensity, but trying to ride for 1.5 hours to 2 hours on those days. Or if I have a ride planned out on the weekend, then I'm doing that also. You know, the funny thing is, I don't even know. I think the most watts I've done is just over 400, and that was finishing up the day the other day. Oh, so there you go. So this is why I mean you should try to stream and ride or do something like this. I've already hit my hour point, and I didn't realize I was even there. The last time I even looked up, I think I was at 50 minutes, and that felt like about a minute ago. So, but so I'm just gonna cool it down, and whew, that's it. So I do appreciate everybody that jumped on today. Friday, right now, the plan is that we're gonna talk a little bit about CrossFit and my thoughts on it. And it's really, The reason for it is because a little bit of Jillian Michaels. So if you want to do a little pre-work, look up what Jillian Michaels has said about CrossFit. Regardless of what your regardless of what your ideas are on CrossFit, what your preconceptions are if you've never done it before, or what your experiences are if you have done CrossFit, just look at what Jillian Michaels has to say about it, and keep an open mind, because I don't want to give too much away, but I think that she's just looking for views. I really don't believe that she really understands a lot about what CrossFit does, specifically because just because of the things that she says. But anyways, you guys go ahead and watch that video, and we'll talk a little bit about what CrossFit is, what my thoughts are on it, both positive and negative, and I welcome all opinions when it comes to it. Your messages come across on the stream, so everybody can, can chime in. They agree or disagree. There's some people that are in CrossFit that think it's the greatest thing in the world. There's other people out there that think it is the most dangerous thing in the world. Matter of fact, I really didn't know what CrossFit was back in 2012. And as I was trying to figure out what type of interval type training exercises I was going to do, CrossFit came along, and I reached out to my California training partner guru and asked him his opinion, and he said, don't do it, you're just going to get hurt. And I never looked at it again for a couple years because I was trying to figure out what was going to work for me, and I trusted my friend, his opinion, and we had the same degree. We went to school together, to university together, and so I just didn't look at it again. And later on, once I finally dug into the opinion that he had, I asked him, why don't you, what's your reasoning for saying I shouldn't do it? And in so many words, he basically just said, because. Well, that's a stupid thing. I mean, it's not what he said, but he didn't give me an answer, So, what I will tell you is that my opinion as far as exercise goes, hopefully you picked up on this today, is that I don't care what you do. Just do something. And don't let people discourage you from doing it. If for some reason, and don't let yourself discourage yourself from doing different exercises. You can get in your own head and decide that, well, I just can't do that, or I just whatever. Bullshit. Modify it. Do it. Just get up and do it. So the message for this stream, I'm going to end it here now, is fight the battle when it comes to your eating habits. Keep trying to get better. You're never going to stop eating. The one thing that you could do is you could stop exercising, and a lot of you don't exercise right now. So find something. Do something. Get up and move. And exercising isn't knitting, it's getting off your ass and moving. And so find something you enjoy and do it consistently. I don't care if it's 1 week, once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. I suggest at least 3. Or if it's every day, which also is probably not a terrible idea, to do something. Get up and do something. So anyways, we'll see you guys on Friday. Peace out. And if I can get this to work, which I can't, once I figure out how to get this thing turned off here, we will stream you later. See you guys.